super looking forward to this next panel coming up. I'm gonna go ahead and read y'all something. We do this at the beginning of each of the panels for this year. While we have a slightly different format than you may be used to, I can assure you that it's gonna be an interesting conversation. As you may know, there's a little thing called a strike going on with SAG. SAG is a labor union that represents some of the actors who are present this weekend. Because of their ongoing strike for better working conditions, they may or may not be able to speak about their acting careers, past or present. As the moderator, I also cannot ask any questions of them related to their work. This includes questions about their current projects in production and filming. However, we clear this. We are going to be able to open it up for audience questions. Now, you guys can ask whatever you like, but just so you know, I'm going to preface this, they may have to answer it very carefully, or they may not be able to answer it at all. So just keep that in mind. Now, this would only pertain to things that the studio produces, so if you have questions about maybe some of the written work, Star Wars written work, you can definitely talk about things like that. But again, pertaining to their work with the studios, just careful how you ask things, interactions with their co-stars, that might be something you can kind of venture into. So just be mindful of that. But either way, we'll be talking about things they're passionate about, things that inspire them, or maybe the last thing they posted on Instagram, we'll see. In short, we'll have an interesting and entertaining conversation. So please sit back and enjoy the ride. And please join me in welcoming Dorian Kinji, Carrie Jones, and Emily Swallow to the stage. Let's hear it. Hey guys. Little Mr. Wink here and there. I think that's okay.
That looks sort of familiar.
My dress too a little bit, but I was trying to be subtle about it. A little subtle about it. Hi guys.
The style of this is very
Yeah,
It's very
I'm
contemporary.
just taking a nap up here.
I know, I think it's sponsored by like Ashley's Furniture or something. I'm not sure actually. But hey guys. Hi. So I've had the pleasure of kind of chatting with you guys a little bit backstage and at your autograph areas, and very nice guys. These are these are definitely some of the coolest guests that are here today. Very cool, very great with fan interact. Have you guys had some fan interactions with them? Like at their booth? If you haven't, please go before the day is done, and you won't regret it because
Talk to us.
you can talk a lot more personally and specific with them at their booths that maybe we can't do as much up here.
And I just want to say off the bat, like, this is a weird time, obviously. With some things, there's a lack of clarity. Even we have a lack of clarity about some of the reasons we're not supposed to say certain things, and so we're doing our best. But mostly, we want you to know how much we appreciate you, and that we would not be doing what we're doing without you. So we don't, we're trying as much as possible not to let this negatively impact you. And we thank you so much for your support during this time. And hopefully it's gonna result in contracts that are better, whatever that means. And I really appreciated the greater conversation that it's provoked around how we use technology in many industries. And I think that those are always good questions to ask. So just thanks for hanging in there with us. And yeah, that's all.
The idea so we can see more amazing work from these guys after, better negotiations, better work, better pay, better conditions, and then we get better work that comes out of it from the writers and everyone.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And the most important thing for me is the reason why I do these is for you guys and to meet you guys personally. And when you come up and talk to us and we hear your stories and just to laugh with you, I mean, that's what I cherish. So thank you all for being patient and coming out and supporting us. We really appreciate it.
Speaking of that, well, first off, is this your first time in Corpus Christi, each of you?
It is. I've been
First
all over
time?
Texas.
Oh, we got first timers up here, guys.
Yes.
Corpus is an interesting crowd. I mean, I love the city. It has its pros and cons, but it's definitely a great
Every
city.
city does.
Every city does. No, and it's a fast-growing city, and I think that's evident in even this con, because when it first started, it was kind of just turning its wheels, and now we have, I believe, some of the best guests we've ever had this year, and I've just been so excited to be a part of it and interview and meet you guys personally. So have you guys, and I'm speaking for the general consensus here. Have you guys tried a Whataburger yet? Has everybody done a Whataburger? Has everybody done a Whataburger?
Tried a what?
A Whataburger? So
I've
there's a thing here.
had those before. before, yes.
Okay, all right.
They're not exclusive to San Antonio. We were actually
No.
having
Corpus Christi was the birthplace of Whataburger.
we had
That's
a
why.
conversation last night about this, because apparently if you dare to suggest that In-N-Out is also good, and then Dorian was saying they're entirely different burgers. It's like when people try to compare people say does the Impossible Burger taste like a burger? No, it's a different thing.
I actually, and don't throw tomatoes at me, guys. I actually do enjoy an In-N-Out burger, but they are very different in the style of burger it is. But I'm still a diehard Whataburger fan. I mean, I grew up with Whataburger, y'all. Come on, But it's a thing here, guys. So if you haven't had a Whataburger, go get one. You can make it however you like. So you tell them what you want and you can put. My favorite is bacon, cheese, grilled onions, avocado on small toasted buns. You can do anything you want. So, jalapenos is a good thing too.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a thing. So, speaking of cons and your interactions with the crowd, I mean, I really, we've talked about this with pretty much every guest who have been to many cons and have experienced, crowd interaction and what that feels like. And Judith mentioned something early on where she was like, it's not even about me, it's about their reflection in me, like fans' reflections in me and how much things mean to them. And she's like, it just means so much to me. So talk about your experiences with fans and maybe an interesting or unique experience you've had with a fan at a Comic-Con.
When I was a kid, I was there, right? When I was a kid, I would go, I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania originally, and I just remember the very first time, back then it was mainly comic books, but every now and again you'd get like a celebrity that would go. And my first one I went to, I had enough money to go in, and I met a celebrity when it was there, and just that few minutes that I had to just to say hi, it meant a lot. And obviously, if I'm remembering it today, that was I was probably 10, how much it had an effect. So I think when I come here, I think again for me, it's like I always try to ask personal questions about how you doing, how's your family, especially when there's kids, saying hi to the kids and tell me a joke or something like that. I always try to make it a personal experience that hopefully people hold on to for as long as I've held on to mine.
Well, these are core memories being made here, guys, and I've experienced them too. Dorian, do you have an interaction with that?
Yeah, no, absolutely too. Especially like you said, the concept of I don't know, it kicks into me a little bit more based on our height. So where they come in wow, you're so tall. Yeah, it's what it is. It's a beautiful place.
6'4", 6'7"? Did I get that right?
First.
Oh, I'm sorry, 6'4", 6'7".
Yeah.
I did look that up because I couldn't help it.
Yeah, but that's the thing.
Well, I was actually thinking, am I shrinking? Because you do over time, so maybe you do.
Slowly. But that you said, that giving the context of what you think and watching something and then putting it into a realistic, tangible scenario, even just shaking a person's hand, like you said, just looking into somebody's eyes. I mean, human communication and connectivity and energetic exchange, you can't duplicate that. And I think also that's the thing about too, like with Star Wars and the concept of the original films, those being made with puppeteering, right, and tangible props, and not everything was crazy CG all over the place, and then how it transitioned off into the movies using more CG than practicality, and then you're going now into Disney Plus where they're going and harnessing it into tangible stuff again, like the sets are real and the volume is 90%, has the walls, but at the same time that half of that spaceship is real, so we're feeling that again, and just being able to feel, and then the actors respond to something that is tangible. It's something that is real, and energy communication, I think, is so underrated in our world. However, the force is real, right?
Yeah,
Something like that is important.
Yeah, I started acting in theater, and I still, just for the pure acting experience of it, theater is my heart, because it's such a complete thing right there in the room. You have the audience, you have, you're on stage with these actors that you've been digging into this material with for some time, and even if you do a play over and over and over and over, each individual performance is completely unique based on the energy in the room and the people that are there and how you're feeling that night. And I miss that when I do TV. It's such a weird thing to be performing in a room full of people who, none of whom are supposed to be reacting to you. Like, it's their job not to react. And it's a very strange thing. And so for me, coming to do the conventions is a chance to finally like complete that storytelling loop and to have that real in the moment experience. And I love, I mean, like these guys were saying, I love getting to hear your stories. I love getting to hear how what we do has impacted your life, how, and especially being part of something like Star Wars, like, you know, we've joined this huge thing that started before we were ever a part of it, and to get to kind of jump in there is incredible. I also, I first started doing conventions because of Supernatural, and it was, my first few were a little odd. I've got a few fans here. My first few were a little odd because people seemed like really nervous to come up and talk to me and like worried about what I was gonna be like. And I was like, what's going on? Because if you have met me now, and these guys know I'm a big dork, and I'm like constantly just all over the place. But I realized it was because on the show, the character that I played on that show never smiled, and she was like smiting people left and right, and she was always really cranky. So I think like before people got to know me at conventions, they thought I might be like that. So I'm very grateful that you guys want to take the time to get to know us, like for who we really are, and not just these characters that we play.
Just real quick, it's funny that you say that. That's hilarious that you say that, because the very first convention I did after Star Wars, someone walked up to me and asked me that. Are you that mean in person? Do you always like to fight like that? I'm the exact opposite.
That's why it's so fun to play characters like that, right? Because you get permission.
I think that's why some people like playing villains and things like that, because it's like they get to just be something they normally aren't, and it's more interesting sometimes to do those characters. Yeah, so it's definitely a very, interesting, the interactions are definitely a big part of why we're here and why we do this, and I know it's a very symbiotic relationship that we have. I'm trying to do what I can do, guys. These guys can talk about whatever they want. They can literally say whatever they like. I just have to be careful with how I word questions. So I appreciate you guys skirting the line, doing what you're doing right now.
We appreciate you.
Truly, this has been such a cool experience. So again, I know there's been a lot of challenges and rewards being an actor and a stuntman and a makeup artist. We've got a lot of talent up here. They're all actors, but we have a couple of them that are doing that do stunt work. I'm going to actually ask you a little bit about your mom and your dad. Can we talk about who your mom is? Can we just say that?
People might know or not know. There's a TV show called The Bionic Woman at one point. She's
Lindsay Wagner.
One of the first female superheroes. So I find that very interesting too, talking about having, with great power comes great responsibility, right? But for her, this seriousness in which she took her work, and still takes her work, into her life, into the content, and into what it's going to mean for the world is so much deeper than most people would ever know. And coming from being a kid, like, hey, I'm on set, like not knowing anything and growing up, like, whoa, she made a really big impact. Because you realize the show was only on for 2 seasons, which is, yes, exactly, and most people don't understand, like, that's how impactful it was, what she did. And it's a little tidbit that she has, where she always wanted to make a difference, right? Nonprofit organizations, like self-help workshops for people. She still does that, works with like domestic violence corporations and spiritual workshops. Just, she's like, she's all the deities I feel like put into one house. She's like Gandhi and Buddha. She's like, just every time I try to ask her something, she's like, honey, well, you have to think about it from their side too. And I was like, I know, but I don't want to. Like she really grounds everything in that respect. The point being, in taking her job so seriously with a bigger goal in mind, each episode, if you realize her show was really interesting, she'd be like, one would be talking about like meditation and like how to slow your breathing down and calming your heart and all this other stuff. And then the next episode would be like fembots or Bigfoot. And you're just like, what is that about? And come to find out she was negotiating with the producers. She's like, look, I want to make a difference in the world. Like there are so many other things we could do with this platform to help people. And they're like, cool, we get that, but we do one for you and then you do one for us. And so she was constantly leapfrogging these ideas and concepts, and she's had people come up where they've had very extreme situations that they ended up reflecting on the show, having like the meditation thing. I was in a domestic violence scenario, and then I thought about this, and I remember watching your show. And so she's impacted people far above and beyond what I would think. But then, you know, like I said, for us too, expressing our fandom and acknowledgement of how entertainment has, you know, helped us grow as well. Because, you know, there were shows that had cause and effect and moral dilemmas, and, you know, you're a teen and then you watch a show that's about a teen that goes through the same thing that you're going through, and then, you know, words of wisdom come in from your parents or Uncle Joe or whoever it is, and they overcome these obstacles. It makes you feel not alone. You know what I mean? So that's what's really heavy to think about that. My mom's been very huge about that, so it's hard to not
Yeah,
talk
shocking.
about her without being. She's on a pedestal for a reason. She's awesome.
I love it. Yeah, Lindsay Wagner was definitely a pioneer, and I think she was a huge influence on a lot of women in industry, and I know it was really cool. I did not know that about you until I did some of that research. That was really cool. And then his dad is Henry, and he's a stuntman, so it kind of run in the family a little bit.
He's awesome too, don't get me wrong, he's a fantastic guy. But yeah, he started out doing like the Dukes of Hazzard and A-Team. Like he's one of the best stunt drivers in Hollywood, and I can say that, and it's totally fine because it's true. Like top 5. He doubled Mr. T, basically all that drifting van coming out. Like he coined that type of move in Hollywood. All that, there's so many other things, and he still does like the Fast and Furious movies too, and with his seasoned age. Still an amazing driver, and yeah, the stunt aspect. So I kind of came from two sides of the coin.
Yeah, you and Sean really kind of talked to Sean yesterday a little bit about growing up with like famous parents in Hollywood, and he was like, they were kind of already, they were big in the 60s. He's listened, by the time that I was coming around, my life was pretty normal. Like I didn't feel like it was too like Hollywood. He's like, and then I was in Goonies, and I still didn't, I think he didn't get elected to, I'm sorry, he was in a film in the 80s. And then he didn't even get elected to like class president that year or something like that. But it was just interesting. So I kind of feel like maybe similar situation where you grew up in that environment, but you still probably had a typical kind of like upbringing, I would imagine.
I did. The funniest part about it, I think, is when I was old enough but still young enough to not understand the concept. We'd be at like a restaurant somewhere in the middle of anywhere, like on a road trip, and they'd come up like, Mom, why are people always coming up and talking to you? And you're like, oh, well, it's my job, honey. And she's trying to explain it because I never understood, like, people, like, everybody knew you. Like, that didn't, because I wasn't allowed to watch it for, like, a long time. Because you're not going to see your mom, like, beat up or be in a really dangerous situation or her, like, being hurt. Like, she was like, you'll see it when you get older. So I really didn't have a concept of it until later on in life. And then, but then it came to be, you're like, well, how was it? And I was like, I don't know. It became a normal thing. So I didn't associate it, and we just lived like normal people anyway. So there was no, just didn't have the ego behind a daily routine.
So Carrie, as well as being an actor, you also do makeup artist, and some serious, like, high level. This is like professional, like crazy. I want to say all the things you can say, but let's talk a little bit about your makeup artist in that industry and how that kind of got started with you.
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, I grew up in humble means, so as a kid, watching TV, which I still feel like that's what movies and TV should be today. But as a kid, it was escapism, right? So whenever I was in a bad situation or my neighborhood, instead of being